Record. Okay. So the EQ crew, we have our first workshop of the year. This workshop is on mindful tech, mindful technology. And it's funny enough because today Mark Zuckerberg was talking to the Senate about how technology, in particular social media technology, has actually had a lot of adverse effects on our mental, right? On our psyche. But he also shared that they've been working hard to try and make it as safe and as effective as possible. And part of using technology is using it in a way that elevates or enhances your psyche, right? And in this case, our workshop is going to be on how do you use technology to become more emotionally intelligent. So we got some tech savvy strategies. If you're live on TikTok right now, you can see here are the 6 strategies. They're all free. And actually, number 5 is not free. Number 5 is not free, but 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 are all free. So let's jump into what we're going to be covering here today. So there are 3 particular tech tools that really can help you improve your emotional intelligence. I highly recommend that this year be the year that you really get intentional about improving your EI. Why is that? Because honestly, don't let life pass you by with and having low emotional intelligence, in part because when you're low EQ, you're less likely to make great decisions. You're less likely to have fulfilling, healthy relationships. You're less likely to make more money in your life. So I highly encourage you to start putting these free tools to work. Put these free tools to work. And we actually also going to have some bonus tools as well. And then we're going to have a little Q&A and then we'll wrap up. So I was actually kind of shocked when I discovered that we have some free tools that are native in our phones that honestly a lot of people don't even talk about or even know about, right? Free tools, okay? Free tools. So before we even actually get to the tools, let's remind ourselves, what is emotional intelligence to start? Emotional intelligence has to do with 4 key areas. Number 1 has to do with self-awareness. One of the best ways you can recognize if you have high or low self-awareness is how confident are you in your decisions? How confident are you in your personality? And how confident are you in recognizing your emotions, distinguishing your emotions, and being able to regulate your emotions, which ties into self-management, the second area of emotional intelligence. Then we get into social awareness, recognizing other people's emotions, asking questions, being curious, understanding their personality. Low social awareness means you're trying to change somebody's personality, right? High social awareness is I'm trying to better understand your personality for the purposes of what? To get to know you, to build a relationship. And in relationship management, the 4th area of emotional intelligence, we're talking about conflict resolution, using empathy, and being an effective leader. So that is what emotional intelligence is about. It's an all-encompassing kind of ability that you can work on. You can train yourself to get better, right? If you're going to train yourself to improve your emotional intelligence, throw some likes up, follow along for the rest of this workshop. Again, this is the January workshop on for the EQ crew. That is my free community that is helping everyday people, no matter where they are in their journey, develop their emotional intelligence. Men, women of all over the world are joining this community, and they're getting access to a lot of great tools, and they're getting access to new ways to examine themselves, make decisions, and work on their relationships and communication. So, all right, let's talk about the tech toolkit. So it's funny, I recently wrote a newsletter. If you're on my newsletter list, my newsletter is called The Social Gym. If you're on that newsletter list, you saw that I mentioned Emotech. Emotech, I'm sure some of y'all have probably heard of the song. I fell in love with an emo girl. Whoa, did you though? If you did, cool, good for you. But Emotech is about technology that helps you get clear and get better at emotional intelligence. All right. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the state of mind in your health app on your iPhone. So give me a like if you have if you have an iPhone. Give me a like if you have an iPhone, if you're on the live. Pull out your iPhone right now, go to the health app and search for state of mind. This is a very, very cool application and it's free. I think if you have iOS 15 or 16, this tool is, I've been actually using it recently. And when people talk about having data, right? You want to have data on how you're doing. This is the tool you need to be using this year. So that way, when you get to December 31st, 2024, and you look back and say, man, my year was great, or man, my year was terrible, you got an entire log of all your emotional data. Okay. This is really, really helpful. And if you do this for 1 year, I guarantee you, you're going to have one of the best social and emotional experiences of your life, just because you're way more aware of what's going on socially and emotionally. The second tool is Journal on iPhone. This tool is really cool because it takes into account different podcasts or music you've listened to, where you've been, people you've called or connected with, and things you've done in the past few weeks to try and get you to, or prompt you to reflect on your life and to journal, right? Why is journaling important? Why is journaling important? We all have inner chatter. We all have the inner dialogue, the inner voice. Well, actually, not all of us. Some people don't even have the inner voice, which I find a little weird. I find it a little bit weird. But when it comes to journaling, it is engaging in an activity that is turning that inner dialogue into a reflective story for you to put out on paper and for you to log and for you to revisit in the future, right? Journaling can be very cathartic. It can be very cathartic to being able to process and let go of your emotions, right? For example, I am a Ravens fan. I'm a Ravens fan, okay? I don't know what they did on Sunday, but they didn't do what they were supposed to do, and they lost to the terrible Kansas City Chiefs. Sorry if you're a Chiefs fan on my live, or if you're watching this, you're a Chiefs fan. Obviously, they're not terrible because they're champions, but I just don't like the team. Anyways, Ravens lost. I felt very unpleasant. Why? I spent a decent amount of money going to this game. And then two, they did not perform to the expectations I thought they would, right? So I had an expectation hangover. And this led me to logging in the state of my app that I felt very unpleasant. And then I went to the journal on my iPhone and I wrote about it. I talked about it. I got my thoughts out of my mind onto this digital platform. This was very helpful because it allowed me again to let go of the emotion a little faster. Now, to speak on like why using Emotech in this case, state of mind, health app, journal, I was able to let go of that loss that the Ravens experienced relatively quickly because I was pretty specific about what that loss meant to me. The emotion that I created around, or the meaning I made around the Ravens losing to the Chiefs 17-10 in the AFC Championship was disheartened, right? I was disheartened, right? I wasn't sad. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't angry. I wasn't frustrated. I wasn't hostile. I was disheartened. I was disheartened. Now, what does that mean to me? To me, disheartened means that it's that kind of experience when you have a pretty big drop in confidence. When you have a pretty volatile drop from you were very confident to now all your confidence is pretty much shot. I felt disheartened. When I had that clarity around that emotion, I logged that in the journal. So that way now I understand and I recognize this is what disheartened feels like. This is what disheartened feels like. The third free tool, and I highly recommend, if you're not using it, you're already kind of behind, is ChatGPT. If you're not using ChatGPT as a mental health companion in some regard, especially if you don't have a lot of friendships or if you have, a family that's not very supportive, I highly recommend using ChatGPT to help you engage in, dialogue around anxious thoughts. My wife actually, one of the things she practices is she practices positive reframing, which is a research-backed way of actually reducing your anxiety. And the challenge is, though, you got to be really trained in how you go about positive reframing as a reaction to feeling anxious. That takes a lot of training and effort, right? And sometimes people are tired, right? So it's a little harder. So when it comes to using ChatGPT, I recommend having prompts, right? Prompts that you can utilize to positively reframe negative thoughts, right? Positively reframe anxieties, to give you recommendations of things that can improve your mental in the moment. Sharing with ChatGPT, hey, I feel down today because my supervisor yelled at me. What do you think I should do to kind of get back to balance? The AI is going to give you some sort of suggestion. Again, this is free, right? You don't need to be paying $100, right, to a therapist or a coach, right? If you don't have the money, I always recommend the human option, right? I'm a coach, right? I've been to therapy. I think therapy is great. I think coaching is amazing, right? ChatGPT, if you got $0, if you're broke, use ChatGPT today. Go sign up. If you're broke, get on it. All right. So I want to come back to the state of mind in health app. So many of you are probably wondering right now, how exactly does this help me improve my emotional intelligence? Well, when it comes to your own self-awareness, right, you have to be able to recognize what emotions or what meaning you're making in the moment. I was just on a training yesterday with a new member of the EQ crew who often uses the word anxious to describe a lot of his unpleasant moods, right? And I said to him, I said, that's a problem, right? And he's like, well, that's interesting. Why is that a problem? I said, if you are using anxious to describe thousands of different unpleasant experiences you have, it's going to take your brain and body a lot of energy to process that experience because it's not super clear. It's kind of unknown, right? It's unknown the source of the unpleasantness, right? Instead, if he was actually able to discern and get more granular with the emotional experience, his brain and body will be able to register and process that emotion faster. For example, after having a dialogue with him around what emotion is, according to the most research-backed theory in the neuroscience, emotions are the way in which you make meaning out of your physical sensations. And no, they are not basic universal emotions, according to the evidence. People experience all sorts of emotions and we create meaning because we're creative beings. So with this in mind, I share with him, he felt overwhelmed, different language. Then we moved to he felt exasperated, right? Anxiety wasn't even the accurate emotion. He was just using that as an umbrella term. So what's really powerful about this is he was able to reframe or recalibrate his concepts to better map on like, hey, this is what exasperation feels like. This is what overwhelm feels like. And no, yeah, I may have experienced anxiety, but that wasn't the base emotion that I navigated initially. Very powerful. So for a lot of people out there, if you suck at naming your feelings, and if you suck at not being really effective at communicating your emotions and not really having a great sense of emotional clarity, get on the State of Mind app right now in your health app on iPhone. Download it. I mean, it's already downloaded if you have the health app. Get in there and start logging your emotions. The beautiful thing about this tool is that it actually is supported by the research and the science. So what do I mean by that? It's distinguishing between moods and emotions. Moods and emotions are different. Moods are affect, physical sensations. Do you feel pleasant? Do you feel unpleasant? Emotion is, what is the meaning I'm making out of this mood? Okay. I'm amused. I'm satisfied. This application does this. It helps you do this, and it's a very cool tool. Really awesome. Highly recommend you use it. And as I mentioned with respect to the journal on iPhone, just imagine, right? A lot of people like to physically write down in a journal. They like to write down stuff. I highly recommend that. If you want that sort of tactile kind of feeling, you want to write with a pencil or a pen, go ahead and do that. But if you're, glued to your phone, like many of you probably are, including myself, you probably should be using these apps to kind of pause and reflect during your day. Okay. Pause and reflect during your day to just log, hey, I went on an afternoon walk around the neighborhood or around the office. The fresh air, was rejuvenating. And then I got a call from my brother, right? Start logging that stuff. That way it serves as a reminder to, hey, there are things in your life you can be grateful for. Okay. That's the beauty of journaling. It does allow for you to get more clear on gratitude as an attitude. Okay. So those are two of the best free tools to improve your mental health. And I want to pause here and just kind of think about why you should use these, right? Why should you use these? I think the biggest problem that if you're experiencing this problem, you need to get on using these tools immediately is if you're not really sure how you feel day in and day out, and you could just kind of use these like random terms like this sucks or I'm mad, right? Or if you like use these terms that don't really have a lot of depth, I recommend you start using these applications because the greater your emotional world becomes, the more enriching your relationships will be. Okay? Let me say that again. The greater your emotional world becomes, and by greater I mean the more emotional depth you have, the better your relationships in your life will be at work, at home, and with yourself. So, a few more bonus tools. I recommend if you don't meditate, if you really struggle with trying to manage your thoughts, navigate your thoughts, I personally used Headspace before. I really loved Headspace. I've tried some other meditation apps, Calm, although the Calm's more of a sleep app. I've looked into the Sam Harris Waking Up app, but it was too much going on in that app. Headspace was really awesome. It had guided meditations, and I actually did a 60-day challenge that I completed with Headspace. And I meditated for 60 days straight. And I'll tell you, I never had such greater clarity of where my thoughts were originating and how I was able to silence the inner chatter and just be able to be in the moment and be present. Second bonus tool that I would recommend is having time to listen to binaural beats. The research is still kind of coming out on this, but there are certain frequencies. Keep in mind, your brain has brain frequencies, brain waves. There are certain frequencies in your mind, or in your brain rather, that can alter your mood or change how you feel or change your thought patterns, right? And 432 hertz binaural beats and 528 hertz binaural beats. I've been listening to it for 7 years and I have great sleep. I also rarely experience debilitating anxiety, crushing regret, and other negative emotions that tend to stick with me, right? So binaural beats has been very helpful in that. If you want more data on like why binaural beats kind of works, check out Andrew Huberman's podcast on that. It's really awesome and really helpful. And a few more things I want to kind of highlight before we, get a move on here is you got to take ownership and control over your mental health, right? No one is going to be able to heal you for you, right? No one's going to be able to, improve you without your own permission, right? Like you have to take control and take ownership of your own well-being. You have to do that. And so you can start with some of these small things I've mentioned. And even number 6, creating a mindful photo album. Start screenshotting different quotes, different pictures of, things that bring you pleasant feelings, right? And start using these things to look back on and reflect on of, what's going well in my life and what thoughts or intentions am I trying to set when I show up each and every day. Building an album like this can be a great little repository of positive emotional experiences, right? You're creating a positive feedback loop with your external environment. So that's very helpful and very powerful. So in the hold up. So lastly, in the EQ crew, which is my online, my digital community for emotional intelligence, we have a bunch of cheat sheets in there. So if you're somebody that's in a relationship and you need some help in your relationship, we have a number of emotional intelligence cheat sheets, like best practices of what to do in a relationship. I'm in the process actually of building what is called a relationship operating system, and these can be personalized to your personality, your specific personality, and what you should do to have fulfilling, successful relationships. These cheat sheets are located in the EQ crew. You can join for free, or you can become a paid member at $19 a month or $75 a month. It's the higher $75 a month is to work with me directly and get coaching, engage in shadow work, and get a premium personality assessment. So here's what I want you to do. Here's your challenge. All right. Here is your challenge. Your challenge for the next 2 weeks is to use one of these tools. I recommend you use number one. In fact, let's make it simple. Use number one over the next 2 weeks. Okay. I want you to note any changes or improvements you notice in your mental well-being as you start to log your mental health, right? As you start to log your emotions. Let me know how it goes. Feel free to follow me on TikTok. I will be putting out some more content this week, but follow me on TikTok, DM me, check me out on Reels, on Instagram. Follow me on there. I'm also on YouTube. I'm everywhere, right? And then I also want you to do this last thing too. Share one of these tools with somebody in your circle. Talk about it, right? Share number one, the State of Mind and iPhone Health app. Share Journal. And this is really helpful because so much of your psychological well-being has to do with who are you around. If you're around a bunch of shitty people that are toxic, that are low EQ, and that don't have a lot going for them in their life, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get something going in your life because that's the people you're surrounded by. But if you share with one person, you'll actually be in better shape to start engaging in and start shifting the environment towards a more positive, emotionally intelligent space. So, any questions regarding some of the best free tools to improve your mental health and develop emotional intelligence? I can stay on here for a few minutes and we can take some questions and we can kind of go from there.